The original Animal Crossing. There's something just magical about it. Something about it just stuck with me through my years, even though until recently I hadn't regularly played it since I was 5 or 8. Through that decade and more, like they just stuck with me. They're just magical, I guess. You know, things like a frog-shaped chair that farts when you sit on it. And then on the complete opposite end of that spectrum, a lovely chair that's pink with a giant heart that also farts when you sit on it. You know, just magic. But above all else, what I remember most fondly of the original Animal Crossing is none other than the Igloo. It just fascinated me as a child. I don't know if it's just because giant snow structure was really cool, especially for a Southern Arizona kid. Like, just seemed impossibly magical and mythical. Or if it was just the atmosphere. The music was so beautiful. And the moment you walked in from the cold outside, it felt so warm and cozy with the fire going and the little candles. And oh my goodness, the soup. I remember as a kid looking at it for way too long. I loved potato soup back then, still do. And I just loved imagining that it was a nice big warm pot of potato soup. And if I had to pick my most happiest place in all of video games, it would have to be the Igloo from the original Animal Crossing. With that being said, today we are covering the evolution of Igloos in Animal Crossing. There's a lot to talk about, but there's also not a lot to talk about because they've only been in GameCube and New Leaf. However, there's not a lot of information about them on the internet, and because I love them so, this is going to be a big info dump of everything about Igloos. And because I love the Igloo oh so much, and it is one of my happy places, I will be making a model of it in the side while explaining everything else. In the original Animal Crossing, the Igloo season starts January 2nd, just after New Year's, and ends February 23rd as the snow begins to leave. Throughout the video, I'll be calling their little snow domes igloos. However, they are technically kamakura, which are snow structures that have a history of over 400 years in the Akita prefecture of Japan. And unlike igloos, which were traditionally used for shelter, these kamakura are used as shrines to water gods. In the past, people came to them to pray to the gods. Nowadays, they're more closely associated with festivals where people gather, and as you probably guessed it, at these festivals in the center of their kamakura, they do not have giant pots of chowder, but rather they have some grills with mochi grilling on them. In fact, if you were to go into one of these in the Japanese version of Animal Crossing, you would find a grill with mochi cooking on it. Each day, the villagers in your town take turns setting up igloos. These igloos just pop up where any of the signs are, which signify where a house can be in-game. Which you can then go inside and either just chat with them about their igloo, or play games with them. These games are either for you to buy an item off of them, or for them to buy an item off you. Each personality has a different game to either buy something from you, or sell something to you. All of these games are luck-based, but if you do well in them, if you're selling them an item, they'll pay you more for that item. And if you don't do well in them, when you're buying an item from you, then that item's going to cost more. Most of the items they try to sell to you are just ones you can buy from Nooks throughout the year. However, there are 9 exclusive items, which yes, I have gone through the efforts of getting to show you right here. They are chowder, beautiful, fireplace, also a favorite, crab stew, delightful, sleigh, very good, dummy, which is interestingly enough, it seems to be an item that accidentally got left in, like they used it in developing the game to act as an item, and then they accidentally left it, so you can get that here. The snow bunny, snowboard, snow tree model, and igloo model. I definitely think the grind is worth it for the fireplace and the chowder. They are just so cozy and lovely to have. The crab stew is also quite tempting. And the models are good to have just to have if you're trying to get all the models, but like they don't look that cool. The Igloo does light up. Getting all these items is quite the grind because you kind of just got to keep talking to them until they offer a game, and then you got to hope when you play that game they offer up one of these items and not a random Nook item. And speaking of games, let's talk about all the games each personality plays. Starting off with the lazy personality. Their game to buy an item from you, they tell you what the item is, and then they name off prices going higher and higher, and you can say no to that price, and then they'll go higher. But if you go too high, then they just stop playing the game, or they reverse and they're like, never mind. I just offered you 1,400, but now I'm just going to give you 500 for it. So, kind of see when you chicken out on that one. And then for buying an item from them, they test your psychic skills and ask, what am I thinking of? Then they give you a few options. If you click the right one, you get that item for free. If you click a wrong one, I haven't clicked a wrong one. I only played this game once. I'm guessing they'll either sell it to you for a low price, but sometimes they're going to do the high price of half of whatever money is in your inventory, which can be a lot. So if you are going to play these games, I recommend keeping 6,000 in your pockets, because that's how much you need to play, and then they can't steal too much. Moving on to Jock. Fittingly, if they want to sell an item to you, the game they want to play is wrestling. If you guess what moves they're going to use correctly, it lowers the price. They give you 3 goes, and the more you guess, the cheaper it gets. And GameCube's a little more brutal than New Leaf. If you get the first one wrong, then they're like, okay, that's it right there. But if you get that one right, then you move on and the price goes lower and lower. But first one wrong, there's no other chances to lower it. And then when they are buying an item from you, they say they have some cards with prices on it. They draw the card, and then they'll react to it. And based on their reactions, you decide if you want to sell the item for that price. They trick you out on this one. They act all shocked when it's really not a high price and things like that. It's cute. Moving on to Cranky. If they're gonna buy an item from you, to determine the price, they are gonna pick a number 1 through 9, and then you're gonna say if you think it's more or less than 5. I believe you do this 3 times. The more you guess correctly, the higher the price is gonna be for them to pay. And then when buying an item off them, they have 3 cards. There's the unlucky card, the so-so card, and the lucky card. You get the unlucky card, you pay around 3,000 bells, the so-so 1,500, and if you draw the lucky card, you get the item for free. And luckily, with none of these games you're playing blind, they all tell what item you're gonna get, so you can be like, not worth it. Then moving on to the girl characters. For normals, if they're buying an item off of you, they'll have 4 cards with prices written on them, and you draw one, and the prices range from like 500 bells to way up there. You get lucky, you get more money. If you do draw the lowest card, then they pity you and they trade you an item instead. Then the game for buying an item from them is they will list 5 items, and if you say no to the first 4, you are forced to buy the 5th item. The thing about the 5th item, sometimes they'll sell it to you for super cheap, like 800, 500 bells. Sometimes they take half of all the money in your inventory. So once again, make sure you don't have too much money in your inventory. Moving on to Peppy. When they buy an item off of you, they pick a hand. And if you pick the same hand as them, then you get a good price for your item. But if you pick a different hand from what they pick, then they're going to give you a low price. Probably one of the more boring games out there. Not even something in the hands, just picking hands. When you are buying an item from them, they tell you that they are going to think of a symbol, and then they list 4 symbols. If you pick the same symbol as them, the price is super high. If you pick a different one, they lower it, and then you play again. You play for 3 times, and then you get free. If you don't get the same symbol as them, all 3 turns. If you pick the same symbol first turn, then it's going to be about 3,000 bells. Then there's Snooty. When they buy an item off of you, they have 3 cards with the symbols X, triangle, and circle on them. They draw one, and you try to guess which one they just drew. You guess correctly, they up how much they're going to pay you for it. And then you do this 3 times until you get hopefully the highest price or whatever. Okay, and if you are buying the item off of them, they have 2 bags, the right and the left bag. In one bag is a wallpaper, which you'll have to buy for 3,000 bells, and the other bag is an item, which if you guess correctly, you'll get for free. This is personally the game I like to play most to get the exclusive items, just because snooties love playing games, so they will offer you the game every time. You don't have to talk to them over and over trying to get a chance at a game. Obviously, the 5 items from a normal would be best because you get offered 5 items, so there's higher chances. However, you gotta talk to the normal a lot for them to get back to playing a game with you. Snooty, every time they're like, hey, wanna play a game? Right or left? Right or left? So you can get through a lot of items very quickly. However, the problem with the snooty game is when they offer the item you want, there's no guarantee you're gonna get it. There's a 50-50 chance. So sometimes it's better to play with the ones that guarantee the item, even though you might have to pay a higher price for it. So playing the Igloo games this winter, I discovered what soup is in the middle of the igloo. I couldn't read when I originally played Animal Crossing, so I couldn't figure it out then. So I just always imagined it was a beautiful, beautiful pot of potato soup. But now the villagers are telling me that it's fish chowder, apparently. And there are potatoes in it. The Peppies tell you that you look like the chunk of potato in the chowder. So, mystery solved. It's been fish chowder this entire time. Most of the villagers, when it comes to what they talk about, they either talk about how delicious the chowder is, which I don't blame them, it looks delicious, or they talk about how they made the igloo, or how they didn't make the igloo, or they like to talk about how warm the igloo is. And that is a wrap for everything you can know about the igloos in the original Animal Crossing. On to New Leaf. So there's quite a few differences in New Leaf. First and foremost, you have to build the campsite to get an igloo. The igloos take the place of tents when winter comes. In New Leaf, they are actual igloos now. As you can see, they have the bricks of an igloo and aren't just a snow hut. But they continue the tradition of having a big old pot of beautiful warm chowder. The atmosphere in New Leaf never hit me as hard as the original GameCube. I don't know if it's just because I'm older, but I think part of it is also the music isn't quite as warming. Anyway, instead of your villagers setting up the igloo, it's someone visiting your town, just like how someone visiting your town would set up a tent. But, just like the original Igloo, you can play games for exclusive items. These items are the campfire, the camp stove, the fish grill, the smoker, and the stew pot. However, with the addition of Welcome Amiibo, a lot of these got a lot less exclusive. The camp stove and the smoker can be purchased from Booker's RV, and the stew pot can be purchased from Franklin's. However, the campfire and the fish grill continue to remain exclusive. Alongside playing games with you, the villagers can be tempted to move in. If you have an extra space, you can get them to move into your town. But if not, they are there to play games with you. And just like in GameCube, each of them have 2 games, one to buy an item from you, one to sell an item to you, but they also all play 5 chances. The one we talked about with the normal villagers before, where they name 5 different items, all for a different price. If you don't pick the first 4, you gotta buy the 5th one for whatever price they say. However, this time, they show mercy, and they don't charge you half your money some of the time. It's normally about 4,000 or 5,000, maybe 3,000 bells for the final item. Okay, let's talk about what game each personality plays. For a normal villager, to determine the price they'll pay for one of your items, you play a game called Mazes. And you get 3 tries to pick which route gets you to the end of the maze, and depending on how many tries it takes, that's how much they're going to pay you. To determine the price for an item they're going to sell to you, they hold a flower in their right or left hand, and you have 3 chances. The more you guess right, the cheaper it gets. Actually, sisterly villagers do basically the exact same thing, except they're hiding a coin in their hand, and then when they go to buy an item off of you, they use that same coin to flip it, and you gotta guess if it's gonna be heads or tails. The more you guess right out of the 3 flips, the more money you get. All of this is starting to sound very familiar. A lot of deja vu here. Then for peppies, when you are buying an item from you play a game called Fishing for Compliments. Basically, they give you a list of 3 compliments, and if you tell them the one they want to hear, they will sell it for less money. If it's not the one they want to hear, they move to another round and they up the price a little bit. By far, this is my favorite Igloo game out of all the games. And I have my slight suspicions that it's the same compliments every time, because some of the other compliments aren't as complimenty. Like, you're such a girl next door, like, why would they want to hear that? So I don't know if this is like a given you can always win. I don't know. Then for deciding the price that they'll buy something from you, it's a lot more boring. They just have 4 cards with prices written on them. You draw one, and whatever price is on there, that's what they pay.
And right here we would move on to snooty villagers. But I have grinded for hours upon hours while editing this video, trying to get a snooty in the igloo. I've gotten every personality 2 or 3 times at this point, but not a single snooty, so I'm giving up the hunt. And if naturally I come upon a snooty in an igloo, I will put in the description what a snooty plays and then link video footage down in there. Sorry for this little gap. The internet was also not helpful.
Lazy villagers, when they go to buy an item from you to determine the price, you need to guess what they ate. And they'll give you a hint, and then you'll guess. If you guess wrong, they'll give you another hint, and then so on until you guess what they ate. The fewer guesses it takes, the more they pay. And lazy's still into food. When they sell an item to you, you need to guess what they ate. They go through this like pantomime eating a fruit, and then you have to guess what it was. Kind of cute that they're obsessed with food. Smug, when they buy an item from you, they play even or odd. They throw a dice in the air, they catch it, you guess if it's going to be even or odd on the top. If you're right, they pay you more, and you can do that for 3 rounds. Then there's determining the price when they sell you an item. In this case, they have cards with flowers on them. One has a dandelion, one has cosmos, one has roses. You draw a card, middle, right, left. If it's roses, they lower the price. And you have 3 chances to lower the price. Jocks, when they go to buy something off you, they have a coin in their hand, and pretty similar to Sisterly, but instead of selling the item to you, they're buying it off of you. And their other game is called Price Fixer. They draw a card, 1 through 8. You guess what card they drew. The closer you get, the less it costs. And lastly, our good friends Crankies, the old men of the crew. Let's see what they do. If they're buying an item off of you, they play a game called Pick a Bell, Any Bell, where they have 4 cards. They each have a price written on them. We've heard this one before, but now they've thrown symbols in the mix. And basically, you pick a symbol and that's the price you get. Their game for buying off them is high card, low card, where they have cards numbered 1 through 9. They draw a card and you have to guess if the number is greater than 5 or less than 5. We've also seen this one before. Honestly, of course there's going to be repeats. It's kind of difficult to come up with this many games for everyone. So if you aren't playing games with them, what are they talking about? For the most part, they talk about the fact that they're in an igloo and that it's cold, and they like to talk a lot about camping and how adventurous it is and how they're in a different town, and sometimes they talk about the stew, which in this case apparently isn't a chowder, but a stew, and from what they say, it seems to only have vegetables in it. And that is a wrap on the igloo mechanics. So on to the little reveal of the igloo model I made. Obviously, it's not perfect. There are definitely things I would change, like the pot and the fire pit need to be probably an inch bigger. I want them to be impressively huge, or I guess the igloo could be smaller. And wouldn't it be nice if I didn't color the rug with markers and I could have it professionally printed to be the exact colors? Yes. But anyway, I'm very happy with how it turned out. Any model with lights in it just thrills me. Unfortunately, the camera doesn't do the best job capturing it. I didn't do the best job. I don't know camera stuff, so I don't know how to make these things look beautiful. In the end, though, it brings me great delight to look at it and see it all lit, especially when it's lit. Oh, I love it so much. It's so fun having my very own Igloo model, and I didn't have to win it off some shady penguin in an igloo. Sorry, Frigga, you're not that shady. And there's the end. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch till the end. And let me know if you're partial to the GameCube Igloos or the New Leaf Igloos. I'm sure most people are going to say New Leaf because that's what they've actually experienced. And let's go ahead and get some anger going that they're not in New Horizons. What's with that? And as always, I really do truly hope you have the loveliest of lovely day. Until next Friday, goodbye. Or I guess technically streams like every day of the week. So as long as tomorrow isn't the weekend. Well, except for every other Saturday. Every other Saturday I also stream. Well, I'll be seeing a lot of you if you choose to be seeing a lot of me.